It was the new year, and the engines were back to work. Gordon back to pulling the express. Henry back to pulling the flying kipper. And Thomas back to working on his branch line with Percy and Toby. They had stayed at the sheds at Farquhar's goods yard for the Christmas period. Thomas was happy to be pulling Annie and Trouble and whistling to people such as Mrs. Kindly on his branch line again. He was also happy seeing the views and clattering through the tunnels and bridges along his branch line again. However, after one of the tunnels, along the curve with the field next to it, he felt the rails quivering as if they'd been damaged. This part of the branch line made Thomas feel nervous. So he was always careful on that part of his branch line as he chuffed backwards and forwards. "We'd ought to get the workmen to fix that shaky part of your branch line soon," said Thomas's driver. Thomas agreed. One day, Thomas had to pick up some passengers from Farquhar to take to Knapford. When everyone had boarded, he set off. Soon he neared the bad bit of rails. He felt them quivering as he puffed over them. Then it happened. With a sudden crack, the rails broke. Thomas felt his wheels leave the track. His brakes groaned on, and he stopped. His coaches stayed on the rails, and his passengers weren't hurt, but his wheels were stuck in the mud, so he couldn't move back onto the track. So his driver ran to the next station and telephoned for help. It wasn't long before Percy arrived. He was coupled to Annie and Trouble so that he could pull Thomas back onto the track. It was hard work, but at last Thomas felt his wheels back on firm rails. Doc arrived with some coaches and workmen. The passengers climbed into the coaches, and Doc took them to Knapford. The workmen inspected the broken rails. "These rails will take some time to repair," they said, "but we'll fix them as good as new." Percy pulled Annie, Clarabelle and Thomas back to the Farquhar station, and the workmen set to work to mend the rails. In the station's goods yard, Thomas was mended. He, Percy and Toby kept themselves busy on the branch line. Sometimes they would work at the quarry. Other times they would work in the station's goods yard. As for the passengers, they had to travel in Bertie to get to their destinations. The engines longed for the track to be fixed so that they could go back to doing their usual jobs. But that's another story.